Ghost Boxer. The Veilsight goggles hung heavy around Dalton Crane's neck as he crept through the abandoned psychiatric hospital. The straps were cracked, the lenses scuffed from years of use, yet the device, half cutting-edge technology, half occult artifact, remained his most prized possession. The goggles could part the thin membrane between the living and the spectral, revealing what others refused to believe existed. But Dalton kept them raised for now. Better to rely on instinct first, to feel the cold spots in the stale air, to hear the faint metallic scraping that sometimes preceded a manifestation, to taste the bitterness that came before terror. His collection canister hummed at his hip, a modified electromagnetic containment unit that looked like a chrome thermos designed by someone who'd watched too many sci-fi movies. It emitted a low, steady vibration that resonated through his bones, like a distant generator. It wasn't pretty, but it worked. God help him, it worked better than anything else on the market. Dalton had been in the collection business for 3 years now, ever since stumbling upon the underground spectral fighting rings that existed in the forgotten spaces beneath cities around the world. The pits, they called them. Vast black market arenas, surrounded by Faraday mesh and sealed by rites older than science itself. There, the dead were weaponized for sport, battling one another for the entertainment of the living and the tormented. He had started small, collecting minor hauntings, poltergeists barely strong enough to lift a chair, and selling them to low-tier pit operators for pocket change. But tonight was different. Tonight, he was hunting the Red Ward Ripper. The Ripper's legend was infamous, whispered among collectors like a campfire horror story. 7 confirmed kills, actual deaths, not the psychosomatic heart attacks or possession-related accidents typical of angry spirits. These were genuine murders, committed from beyond the grave. The Ripper didn't just slam doors or scream through vents. It manifested rage so concentrated it could rupture blood vessels and stop hearts cold. A prize like that could make a man rich beyond imagining, or kill him faster than he could blink. Dalton adjusted his grip on the canister and moved deeper into the hospital. His boots crunched glass and crumbling plaster. Graffiti covered the walls, gang tags overlapping with faded warnings left by paranormal teams who'd never come back. The deeper he went, the heavier the air became, like wading through invisible cobwebs woven from fear itself. He descended the basement stairs, where the light thinned and shadows seemed to pulse with their own heartbeat. Taking a steadying breath, Dalton lowered the Veilsight goggles over his eyes. Reality fractured. The world split into overlapping layers, one mundane, the other alive with spectral residue. Colors shifted, shadows danced, and the past played like faint film projections on the walls. He could see echo people repeating their long-dead routines, nurses wheeling phantom gurneys, patients pacing in endless circles, a janitor mopping blood that never dried. Then he saw it. At the end of the corridor, framed by flickering light, loomed a shape that made his breath falter. The Red Ward Ripper was massive, 8 feet tall, its body a storm of shifting flesh and shadow. Where its eyes should have been, twin embers burned with hate and hunger. It was a man once, maybe, but death had twisted it into something beyond human. Easy now, Dalton whispered, raising the canister. We can do this the simple way, or... The spirit screamed. The sound wasn't heard so much as felt, a psychic concussion that rattled Dalton's teeth and made blood leak from his nose. The air itself seemed to crack apart. He triggered the canister's capture field. A brilliant blue vortex erupted from the aperture, lightning coiling outward like ghostly serpents. The Ripper struck back, unleashing a barrage of spectral force that shattered ceiling tiles and sent instruments flying. Dalton rolled behind an overturned gurney, his body numbed by the cold radiating from the entity. Every nerve screamed. Every thought was drowned by a psychic chorus of pain and fury. But Dalton was no rookie. He'd captured nearly 200 spirits before this night. He knew the rhythms of spectral combat, the way energy built, peaked, and waned. He kept the beam steady, focusing on his breathing, on the hum of the canister, on survival. The battle lasted 15 grueling minutes. The walls wept condensation, frost climbed the floor. By the time the Ripper was finally sucked into the containment field, Dalton's hands were shaking and his vision blurred with exhaustion. The device sealed itself with a hiss of vacuum pressure, and the hospital fell silent once more. Inside the canister, the Ripper's essence flickered, a storm trapped in glass. It had no eyes, no mouth, no sense of space or time, only awareness, only hatred, and the faint memory of satisfaction. The Crucible, the premier pit in the northeastern circuit, sprawled beneath an abandoned subway station in Newark. The air down there always smelled of copper, smoke, and ozone. Dalton passed through 3 layers of security, each guard armed with Veilsight goggles and weapons tuned to both spectral and human frequencies. He could hear the roar of the crowd even before reaching the main chamber, a thunder of excitement that vibrated through the floor. The arena was colossal, a football field-sized Faraday cage crowned by a copper dome. No electromagnetic signals in or out, no spectral escapes possible. Inside, 2 ghosts were locked in combat, a colonial soldier, Julie, a Victorian factory worker. The crowd roared as the soldier impaled the other spirit on an energy spike, its essence bursting into a shower of blue light. Dalton climbed the stairs to the VIP overlook, where Iris Chen waited. She was a legend in the circuit, razor-sharp, unflinching, and always dressed like she owned the afterlife itself. Her Veilsight goggles had old frames, status symbols for those who could afford to gamble with eternity. "Crane," she said, not bothering with pleasantries. "Tell me you've brought me something that'll move the odds board." Dalton set the canister on her desk, the chrome surface gleaming under the flicker of plasma lamps. The Red Ward Ripper. Level 9 manifestation. 7 documented kills. Aggression index is off the charts. For a moment, Iris said nothing. Then she smiled, a small, dangerous smile. "You're either very good or very lucky." "Both," Dalton replied. The negotiation was short but fierce. They settled on 120,000 upfront and a percentage of the Ripper's winnings for its first season. As they shook hands, Dalton tried not to grin too wide. This was the score he'd dreamed of. The Ripper's debut was electric. Its opponent, the Bayou Strangler, was no lightweight, a spirit infamous for dragging victims into swampy illusions before strangling them with spectral vines. But the Ripper dismantled it in under 90 seconds. The crowd screamed for more, their Veilsight goggles reflecting the violent ballet of death and light. Fight after fight, the Ripper dominated. The Weeping Widow of Providence fell in 4 minutes. The factory floor phantom lasted 3. Even the undefeated Architects, a legend in its own right, crumbled in 6. Each victory made Dalton richer, more celebrated. Checks turned into wire transfers turned into power. Soon he owned a penthouse in Manhattan overlooking the Hudson, filled with relics of the trade, rune-inscribed jars, prototype containment units, and Veilsight prototypes worth more than cars. But the money didn't drown out the unease. Sometimes, late at night, Dalton watched recordings of the Ripper's matches. He'd slow them down frame by frame, watching the way the ghost moved, the precision, the purpose. The faint pause before every final blow, as if waiting to the crowd to catch its breath. And then he'd remember the moment of capture, how the Ripper had looked straight at him through the containment beam. Not in rage, not in fear. In recognition, like it had been waiting. He told himself it was imagination, that ghosts didn't scheme or dream. But in the deep hours, when the city outside his window went quiet, Dalton sometimes heard a faint hum from the Ripper's canister in storage. A rhythm almost like breathing, a pulse answering his own. Down below, in the pits of Newark, the crowd still screamed for the dead to fight the dead. Blue light seared the copper mesh. Fortune and fear danced hand in hand. And somewhere, inside a containment device that no longer truly contained, the Red Ward Ripper waited. Because some ghosts, Dalton would learn, aren't trapped, they're biding their time.